This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Well, I'm back home after just an exciting and fun-filled, memorable time while I was out in Los Angeles. This week's episode was recorded while I was out at the Magic Collectors Expo, and then I stuck around for another week because we had the Academy of Magical Arts annual awards ceremony in which I had received a special fellowship. And boy, what can I say? My heart is full and my eyes are clear. I just feel amazed by having received this award. And I want to share it with all of you, the listeners, especially those who have sat behind my microphone or stood behind it over the years, all the thousands of people who have participated in sharing this microphone with me, as well as all the 10,000 plus listeners around the world who do listen to this. And speaking of listeners, I want to thank those who have recently turned their listenership into sponsorship by becoming friends of the Magic Word with their donations and pledges. I want to welcome Louis Hirschhorn, David Spring, and Bob Haukover. Thank you guys very much for becoming friends of the Magic Word. Your financial support really helps keep this podcast going. So I thought I would share this with you and let you hear what it was that they had said on the actual certificate itself. The Academy of Magical Arts, Inc. presents a special fellowship to Scott Wells. The Academy wishes to honor Scott Wells for his considerable contribution to the creative world of magicians, mind readers, stage illusionists, and ardent admirers of the art of astonishment. In recognition of his Magic Word podcast, beginning in 2011 and now numbering over 800 episodes, we celebrate these special conversations with esteemed colleagues and contemporaries that bring us insight, encouragement, and inspiration. The Academy of Magical Arts commends Mr. Wells for promoting not only the personal stories of fascinating individuals, but fellowship amongst our extended family of artists and entertainers everywhere. Presented this 17th of May, 2024, Mark Wooster, President of the Board of Trustees, and Christopher Hart, Chair of the Board of Trustees. Hopefully, if a video of this was taken, I can post this somewhere so that way that you can kind of see the award ceremony. It was certainly a night of stars. I had a chance to meet and chat with Simon Helberg, who played Howard Wolowitz on Big Bang Theory, Ed Alonzo from Saved by the Bell, and Jason Segel, a famed and noted actor of stage and screen. And the person who had introduced me was Larry Wilmore, who served as a senior black correspondent on The Daily Show and also was the creator of The Bernie Mac Show, among many other things he has done as a comedian, writer, producer, and actor. And the host for the evening was Todd Robbins. And there were also a host of other fabulous magicians from around the world who performed in between the awards that were being presented. Well, I could go on with how amazing that the evening was and all the star-studded evening that we had afterwards, going back to the Magic Castle, where we had a chance to kind of congratulate each other and to have a little champagne reception at the Magic Castle. And so, again, I want to thank Gay Blackstone and others who have made this possible. Well, anyhow, I've already thanked the Academy, and again, I just want to personally thank you who are the listeners here. So this week, I want to present one of the people I spoke with while I was at the Magic Collectors Expo. Mark Jensen is a person who has been a collector for a long number of years, and not perhaps a person who readily comes to your mind, but he in particular was a good friend of Marshall Brodien, who was Wizzo the Wizard on the Bozo Show for many years. So he has been a longtime friend of mine in Dallas, and we just haven't had a chance to sit down and talk, and I thought he had an interesting story, as every magic collector does, but I thought in particular you might like to hear his story here this week. So please welcome my guest this week, Mr. Mark Jensen, here on The Magic Word. There are so many things that we have talked about on this podcast over the years, and the subject vary, just like Eugene Berger was always fond of saying that the magic is a house with many rooms, and each of those rooms are a little bit different, and there's room for everybody in this. And it doesn't matter what your interest in magical entertainment is. Even if you're not a performer, you could be a collector. And I wanted to talk with someone who is a noted collector, and he lives in Dallas, been a friend of mine for a long time, and I don't know why I haven't had a chance to actually sit down with him until now. But there are so many really cool things that not only does he collect, but people he's met, and also some stories behind the things that he has acquired that I thought would be of interest to people. Even if you're not a collector, just the stories alone and knowing this guy it's amazing. He's also a past president of the Texas Association of Magicians when we held that in Dallas a few years ago. What year was that?
2013.
There we go. And again, he's always on the lookout for new stuff. And you know how much of a collector that Chip Romero is, and he is one of Chip Romero's best friends. I think they go on the prowl together looking for new stuff to buy and going to these different auctions and everything. Enough of that. Here he is right now, Mark Jensen. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Scott, and thank you for having me.
Well, I'm so glad that you were available and we had a chance to chat. There are so many different things I want to talk to you about as far as the collection and everything, and not the least of which, of course, is about Marshall Brodien. It seems like that is, let's say, what would you say would be the corner of your, I say corner, I mean that you would say that I have more of this guy's stuff than anybody else. Would you say it's Marshall's?
Oh, definitely Marshall Brodien.
Okay. Now tell us a little bit about how that you acquired all that. You and Marshall were friends.
Right. So I grew up in northern Illinois, 65 miles straight west of Chicago. So, hey, I watched the, Bozo Show
sure.
all the time, and Wizzo the Wizard.
Wizzo.
And
Duty.
I was interested in magic, but there were no magicians in the area, no magic shops or anything. So it was all like the scholastic, spooky magic books and things that I had.
Mm-hmm.
Then I saw this magician come out on a muscular dystrophy telethon out of WGN in Chicago, and it was Marshall Brodien. So I called in, spent my own money, and ordered a magic set that also came with a Quaker Oats cookie jar that, believe it or not, I had for about 20 years before it got broke.
Okay.
But, that magic set got me going, and I was performing it and, the stuff on it, having a lot of fun. And then magic got killed for me. And what had happened is we had a magician come to my school.
Uh-huh. How old were you about that at the time?
I was in like 8th grade.
Okay.
And, I was excited, and my hand shot up and everything.
Yeah.
I got picked as a volunteer. I got up there, and he brought out this giant deck of cards, had me pick one, put it back in, asked me what my card was. I told him, and he just looked at it and said, "You are absolutely right," and put it away and sent me back to my seat.
And that was the trick. It was just a joke.
Well, no, I think he screwed it up.
Oh, okay.
But being a young kid, I didn't know any better. In retrospect, I'm 100% sure, because he was like a late high school, early college age performer. I don't remember the name, but I'm 100% sure that it just messed up, and that was his out. But it killed magic for me. And I drifted into doing martial arts and that type of thing, went off to college, and I met, and I'm getting to Marshall here in a second, but I met Andy Dallas.
Sure.
And
now, Andy ran a place then in Champaign, Illinois, which is not that far from Chicago. You said you were in northern Illinois. Where did you live exactly?
I lived on a farm 4 miles from Shabana, Illinois. Shabana.
I'm from Illinois, and I've never heard of Shabana.
It's 65 miles straight west of Chicago. They have a state park there now, so now lots of people know.
Is that towards Elgin? Not that way?
It's a bit more north of that.
North of that? Okay.
We're 20 miles south of DeKalb, which is where Northern Illinois University is.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
So that area.
Really the heart of the farmland. Well, I say hard, but it is a big farmland.
And I grew up on a farm.
Okay.
And stuff. So, I'm in college now. I've met Andy. I'm getting into magic, and my mom calls me up. And she's like, "Hey, I'm moving, and I found that magic set you had in the attic. Do you want it?" And I'm like, "Sure, send it to me."
Sure.
And it goes up on the shelf for a while.
Right.
And then...
You remember what the magic kit was?
Yeah, it was actually one of Marshall Brodien's. It was in the presentation that Todd Carr did today.
Yeah.
it came in 2 sizes. He showed the small size of mine.
Okay.
And I had the larger one. It wasn't one of the really specially identifiable as saying, hey, this is the Disney set that he put out, or the first or second. It was just in the middle of the ones in the early 70s.
Okay.
That he did.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the kit, and, you know, I was starting to do magic shows and all that, and I got hit with a collecting bug.
in college. Yeah.
Well, I was out of college.
Well, after you graduated. So again, you'd put that up on the shelf for a while. It's okay, gotcha.
Well, see, I went college 2 years, got terminally poor, went in the Navy.
Terminally poor.
And then when I got out of the Navy is when I started doing shows and pulled the set down. And I'm like, hey, I got some money now. Let me collect. And, you know, I started collecting Marshall Brodien sets. Now, I never realized at that point that Wizzo the Wizard and Marshall Brodien were the same person. And I bought a set, the second one that he put out, you know, the first one with a color front, and I couldn't tell if it was complete or not. So I went onto the internet, which was in its, you know, AOL dial-up days.
Yeah. That was the 90s.
Yeah. Found his phone number, called him up. We started talking, and he's like, do you go to conventions? And I'm like, yeah, I go to some. He's like, well, I'm going to be at IBM in Dallas. You want to meet up?
Now, were you living in Dallas then at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we meet up, and, you know, he looks at it, and it's like, oh, wow, you know, that's, you know, I think it's complete, but I'm not sure. I'll check when I get home.
Yeah.
But, you know, he gave me all his contact info and everything. A week after the convention, a package arrives.
Okay.
Unknowns to me, I open it up. It's that second set, brand new, never opened, from Marshall, with a little post-it on it saying, hey, I thought you'd like this.
Yeah. This is complete.
Yes.
For sure.
So now, you know, I'm starting to get kids. Grandparents are up north in Iowa and Illinois.
Right.
So 2 to 3 times a year, we're doing the trip up north. And every time we hit that northern Illinois, I take a day and go in and spend it with Marshall.
What town did he live? I'd forgotten.
Geneva.
Geneva, that's
Geneva, Illinois. And so I'd go in there, and, you know, I'd spend the day with Marshall, and he knew I collected his sets because I was getting them off eBay and everything. I know now that he put out a total of 254 different magic sets, if you include the TV magic cards and stuff. And
also, it wasn't all under his name. He branded them like for Lance Burton and for Siegfried and Roy.
Yeah, that includes those, and I'll give you a little more on that.
Okay.
And hey, if I'm getting too wordy, just let me know.
Okay.
So every time I'd go in to visit him, the first few times, it was funny because it'd be like, you know, he'd go, hey, you collect my sets. Do you have this one? And I got to where I'd bring a list of what I had, you know, and I'd be like, nope, Marshall, I don't. And then he would count how many he had, because down in his basement, he had them displayed, but he had that double doors he opened that had, you know, that new old stock.
Yeah, yeah.
And he'd count, and if he had 3 or more, I went home with it. So every time I'd come home with like 8 to 12 magic sets, never opened. And eventually towards the end, if you will, it got down to as long as he would have 1 left, I could have it. You know, so today out of the 254, I have 252 and a half. And the reason I say that is there was a Easter one that was a little rack pack hanger that he had that I have the packaging for, you know, for it. And I have the spare parts, but I don't have the directions.
Okay.
So I could put it together myself minus the directions for it, but I'm still waiting, hoping someday that one will cross my path. And then there's one of the magic wand magic sets that he put together that I have a pristine box that he gave me, but I don't have the actual set that goes inside it.
Oh, okay. You got the box, but nothing in it. Okay.
Right, but that's all I'm missing on everything Marshall Brodien ever produced, to my knowledge. There was a book that Chuck Romano put out with him that listed all the different magic sets, and I've discovered in my years of chasing that it was a great reference for me, but I found several that are not in the book that were put out and stuff. But, you know, so Marshall and I became really good friends. And what even drove it tighter is, as you may know, Marshall was a good friend of Jack Gwynn.
Yes.
And one of Marshall's prized possessions was his Temple of Benares.
That was owned by Jack.
Exactly. And there were 3 total. First one got lost, destroyed. Marshall owned the second one, and I owned the third one.
Wow.
that I got from David Charvet.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as Marshall heard that, suddenly we were on the phone like every week, and he'd call me out of the blue and he'd go, "Can you go measure the front door on yours? How tall is it?" Because he'd be wanting to compare them. So finally one day I sat there and I took pictures and measurements and everything. And the next time I went up, we sat down and we compared his temple to mine. Mm-hmm. And they are 99% exactly the same. Dimensions and everything are the same. Mm-hmm. The only difference is there's little steps that lead up to the doors for the temple.
Yes. Okay.
His is just a flat piece of wood that's painted to look like steps.
Oh, okay.
Mine is actual steps that go up to it. And that's the only difference between the two of them. And of course, I have them both now because the only other thing I'll say is Marshall gave me so much. And, I am just so grateful for that. He was a great friend, but he had Alzheimer's. Yes. But when I would leave, I was a huge Bozo fan, and in his closet, he had like 3-4 Bozo or Wizzo costumes.
Wizzos, yeah.
And I'd be like, "Hey, if you ever decide you'd like to sell one of those, I'd like at least an opportunity to make an offer." Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Yeah. Yeah. Well, once Mary, his wife, had to put him into the assisted living Alzheimer's home, she calls me up and she's like, "Hey, Mark, I'm going to be downsizing, moving out, and I'm going to be selling Marshall's collection. Send me a list of what you're interested in." Well, I had spent so many hours down in that basement museum of his, and that I knew I probably knew better than anyone else what he had.
Yeah.
And I started that list, and it kept getting longer and longer and longer. And as my wife likes to say, I made the mistake of saying, "Hey, Mary, how much for everything?"
Yeah.
So we went down that path. And with the exception of a few items that family kept, I acquired Marshall's entire personal museum, the stuff up in his office and everything. So in December 2014, I flew up to Chicago, went to Geneva, hired a moving crew, went in. 8 hours later, we had it all packed up, a third full of over 240 boxes on their way down to Dallas.
Wow. My obvious question is, and I'm sure the listeners are thinking about this too, where do you put all of that stuff?
So when it first came in, we have a 2-car garage. It filled easily, floor to ceiling, the whole thing. You could barely walk through to go through it. This is 10 years later almost? You can only get 1 car in our 2-car garage.
Oh, you still got that full of stuff.
I've still got, because a lot of it is, he had tons of framed magic posters and stuff.
Oh, that's true. I remember on the walls,
Yeah, some Norm Nielsen reproductions, others originals. I've hung up in my magic areas of my house, the ones that I really like and that, but I've got stacks, of framed magic posters and stuff. And I'm just, it's like some of them I want someday to have a place to put them up. Others I'd be willing to sell, but I hate the idea of pulling them out of the frames. You know what framing costs and stuff.
Sure. Well, Kent Cummins had kind of solved that matter by buying a half of a duplex, and he understood that the people next door were getting ready to move, and he thought eventually he will buy that, so he'll have the 2 duplexes together and basically make it into what he's now termed as the Fantastic Magic Center, which is a museum then basically where you can show all that thing. Well, apparently the other people, when they moved, long story short, someone else bought it, slipped in or whatever, so he only still has access to the one side of the duplex. But still, my point is, he's got some place outside the house that has, or where he lives now in a assisted living place because of his eyesight. But anyhow, he has a place where he can store all the stuff. When that's what you need, rather than a storage container, you need a place to display it, like a house or a duplex or something. I mean, you look at, ideally, as we're talking here now, we are at the Collectors Magic Expo here in Long Beach, California, and we went to Cleveland to see Bruce Averbach's collection, and he has a 10,000 square foot area, which is, he said, this is half my house. The other half I live in. I said, you live in like a 10,000 square foot house? And then so it's a 20. He said, yeah. So anyhow, and it's obviously well displayed. And I'm not suggesting that you do that, but I would think you want to put it up and display it someplace.
Well, yeah. For me, if I have it, I want to have it displayed
As
or
best you
easily
can.
accessible.
Right.
And, I have during the pandemic, I convinced my wife to let me convert the guest bedroom into a library.
Well, that's
so,
good.
I now have a library and stuff instead of bookcases all over the place, which gave me more space then suddenly to hang posters and, put shelves for display and stuff. But
well, if you got bookshelves in there, how do you hang posters? Because you don't have any wall space because the bookcases take up the wall area, right?
yeah, so before I got the library, I didn't have near as many posters and things up.
Yeah.
Once I
you
got
collect
the
posters
library,
like I do. I mean, you got a ton of them.
oh yeah, and so I used to have them all either on the walls or you go into those stores and they got those poster floor rack things that you can kind of go through and look at.
Sure, it's like
I bought 2 of those and I had them all in there double size.
Ken Klosterman had that thing. I thought that was a cool way of looking and viewing posters.
But as real estate in my part of the house, if you will, became more precious, I still have one of them like that. The other one's sitting in the garage with no posters in it because I don't want the garage atmosphere to get to it. But I went and bought a flat file. And so I've got a flat file in the house where that one used to sit with a bunch of them. And then on top of the flat file, I've got my traveling magician statue. I've got some props that Wizzo the Wizard used on the Bozo Show, and then non-magic, but I still think it's cool because I collect lots of stuff. I have Benny Hill's cowboy hat from the Benny Hill show.
Wow, that is pretty cool. So you kind of got a diverse kinds of things. Because I know you got a few Henning things as well as some other stuff as well. Did you ever go to the Bozo Show when you were in Chicago? Did you ever get a chance to be in the Peanut Gallery?
Unfortunately, no. And part of the problem was when I was watching it was when it was at its height, and it had an 8-year waiting list to get tickets. I mean,
before kids were born,
pregnant moms would put their unborn kids' names in. And it's funny, but I've been fortunate to become good friends with several luminaries within, the magic community and such, but it's always been at the tail end of their careers and stuff. So not when they're in their heyday where it's like, hey, Mark, but, it's still cool because, like I knew Marshall, Harry Anderson, John Calvert, we're good friends with. So,
yeah. And I know what you mean. There's people I'm friends with now who had a great career and now they're kind of retired or semi-retired and now we're good friends. But I understand that because at the time they're busy working and making money and trying to make deals and marketing, et cetera, et cetera. But now a lot of these guys would have their own collections of different kinds of things, certainly. And so I again know that you have tried to acquire these things, and that's an interesting story about how that you had befriended Marshall. That was not your intent, I'm sure, but it worked out perfectly for that.
And I know, like when I talked to Mary, she was like part of the, she could have sold for more because Gabe, had come over from Potter and Potter and kind of looked at stuff and said, hey, I'd be interested in this.
Just select pieces rather than cherry pick
everything.
Right.
And, David Copperfield and others were interested in various aspects, but she knew that I was such good friends and respected Marshall so much that I would do my darndest to keep Marshall's legacy together.
Yeah. Right. Well, there again, that's why I think it should be in some place where it can be displayed. And I know that you let people come and take a look at your collection, whoever is interested. One of my questions I would like an answer, and that is, I remember one of the things he had was one of the, I think it was a Hennessy cognac bottle, which has a great backstory. And did you get that bottle?
No, I didn't, but his son, Marshall Jr., has it.
Okay.
And that's the other thing is, when I was negotiating with Mary on the few things that, because we'd talk and she'd say, hey, family, so-and-so would be interested in having this. Are you okay with that? And what I wanted to know is where stuff went and that if at some point down the road they were going to
want to dispose
get rid of it, I'd like at least an opportunity to discuss bringing it home, so to speak.
Yeah, good idea. And just so people who are listening to this know what the heck we're talking about, I could tell the story, but I'd rather you tell the story about this bottle.
All right. So
It's really great.
Marshall, when he was in Chicago, working in the bar scene, worked in what you would call mob-owned facilities.
Okay.
And, of course, Marshall would tell it even better than I'm telling it.
Yeah.
But he basically got hired to go out to one of the mob bosses' homes, which was being like watched by the FBI and
Cicero
all
or
that kind of thing,
Yeah.
and perform for him.
Yeah.
So, he gets out there and, he's doing stuff and, totally amazing, this guy, but it's like the guy's got his enforcer people around, and the mob boss guy, and I forget his name. I have, if you were at my house, I could look it up. I could pull up a video of Marshall telling the story.
Sure.
Because I have a lot of that. But essentially, long story short, it gets to the end, and then the mob boss says, "Hey, would you like to have a drink with me?" Which was really something, because rarely would he offer, that to people. Goes up, pours Marshall a drink. Marshall has it, and he's like, "Wow, this is fantastic." And so the boss tells one of his people to go get a bottle, brings him a bottle, and gives it to him, and it's one of these Louis the Fifth or whatever, like $1,000.
Just an empty bottle is worth like $5,000.
And this one's full, and it sat in Marshall's basement in a nice little display case with the story around it and everything.
Yeah, as I recall, there's a lot more to that story. One of the things I remember that he was saying how they came to pick him up, and he said, "Well, I'll just drive in." They said, "No, because our house is being watched," and so they're checking everybody's license plates as they come in, because the way the FBI is watching the building, and so this way that they won't see you or connect you with anything this way. So it's okay. Well, whatever. And then there was another funny story he was talking about. What was that?
The bird cage.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so he's working in a bar. He's the bar magician in there. And, once again, the names of these guys, it was like Jimmy Two-Tone Shoe, type things. But two of the mob guys come in with their girls. And, they ask the bartender, "Hey, is that magician guy in here?" And, the points down at the end of the bar, and they go up and they're like, "Hey, show us something." So, Marshall does the vanishing bird cage. And, they're like, the girls are like, wow, where to go? And of course, typical macho guys, they don't want to say, "I don't know."
Right.
So they're like, "Hey, where to go?" And Marshall's like, "It's magic."
Yeah.
The typical magician answer. And suddenly one of them pulls out a gun and puts it up to Marshall's head and says, "Where'd it go?" Marshall goes, "Man, I never pulled that birdcage back out again so fast in my life."
Right here.
And then, of course, he later found out that the guy who'd put the head to his gun was one of the main enforcers, and was like 2 or 3 weeks later shot down and killed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's right. I've forgotten they didn't the rest of the story on that one.
So don't pull a gun on a magician.
That's right. Things are not going to go your way. Again, you collect a lot of other things. What other kinds of important collectibles do you have?
Okay. That's on one hand, that's a tough question.
I know.
I have the things that I love.
Yeah.
And of course, if it's in my house, unless it's something that came in as part of a collection that I'm just like, "Oh, that's kind of cool."
Well, let me have an aside here for just a second, because that reminds me about how that people who collect art have told me before, don't buy art for the value that it might increase, but buy art that you like, because if you get rid of it, maybe other people might like it, and maybe you might make money and you might not, but you have enjoyed it because that it's something that you want and you like. Collecting, I think, would be the same way. You shouldn't be buying a book or a prop or whatever else thinking, "Hey, this is going to go up in value." It should be something that you're going to get a look at, enjoy, play with, and show friends or whatever, rather than trying to buy something with the intention of later selling it at a profit.
No, it's nice if it has value.
If it's nice, if it has value. It's a good point. Okay.
Or it's like for years, I used to tell my wife, our retirement's in there.
Yeah. Well, a good idea that John Cox does, he told me some years ago, is where he used to buy a lot of little things, but somebody had convinced him a long time ago, save up your money, buy one expensive thing per year. And that way, over a period of time, you're going to have some pretty cool stuff, as opposed to a lot of stuff that's like, it's okay. But you're going to have a few things that are really great.
Right. But like to give you an example of one of the things I really like, because if you walk in my front door and look directly to the left, there's what I call one of my crossover collecting and it magic related displays.
Okay.
Because I also collect TV and movie screen used props.
Oh, okay.
And so if you walk in and look to the left, you're going to see the world's best, greatest, largest collection of the Great Buck Howard screen used props and memorabilia. Now, for those who may not know, the Great Buck Howard was a movie that's supposedly based on Kreskin's life, but starred John Malkovich as the Great Buck Howard, so Kreskin, had Tom Hanks, Emily.
Not Tom Hanks, Colin Hanks.
No, Tom Hanks was in it too.
Oh,
he was Colin Hanks' father in the movie.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Ricky
Colin
J.
Hanks was, because his assistant. But anyhow.
Yeah, I've got the poster right
Ricky
there.
J.
I'm looking at it.
You know.
Yeah, so it's got the stars were Colin Hanks, John Malkovich, and John Malkovich.
Yeah.
Then you had Emily Blunt as one of the primary main characters in it. Tom Hanks was Colin Hanks' father, who basically gave him a hard time for going on the road as the Great Buck Howard's road manager.
Yeah.
You had Ricky J., who was the Great Buck Howard's handler or, manager kind type character. And then it went on. You had people like Tom Arnold in it. And I mean, it was a fantastic cast for this thing. It was produced by Tom Hanks' production company.
Yeah.
But strangely, it got a limited theater release, which I found odd because I thought it was a, pretty good movie. But
I helped with the release. And when it was in Houston, they got hold of me and had me to entertain the line while they were buying tickets.
We did the same thing in Dallas because they had it there. And that's where I saw it.
Yeah.
But as you know, it's the same as in the magic community, the TV movie prop collecting community. You get friends who do it and you start to network. Yeah. And I had a friend that I'd told who lived out in California at the time that I'd said, hey, if you ever get a chance to see this movie, The Great Buck Howard, check it out. It's pretty good. Well, then he calls me up one day and he goes, hey, I'm in this prop warehouse out here in California and I'm looking at a pallet and it's got boxes on it labeled Great Buck Howard. So I called them up.
Yeah.
And I bought several key pieces from the movie, like, and that's part of the thrill. If people have seen the movie, they walk in there like, oh, wow, because they
exactly
recognize all these pieces.
Yeah.
I won't describe a lot of them in detail because if you haven't seen it, but like there's a theater scene where there are standees of John Malkovich as Great Buck Howard, two of them. I have both of those.
Wow.
There's a thing where this lady pins this pin on him and it sticks him and he gets mad and takes it. I call it the cursed pin and throws it across the room. I have that pin and it goes on and on. But essentially I bought, paying through the nose, several things from this prop house.
Yeah.
And then, I had them displayed and, I'm going on collecting other stuff. And then one day I'm cruising the internet and I find the director's website, Sean McGinty, and I'm looking at it. And I mean, he's an independent director. So, no Steven Spielberg or anything like that, but it has an email address. So I email him and every year for, about 20 years now, I've put together Christmas cards featuring part of my collection. And one of them, I'd done what I had on the Great Buck Howard. So I sent him images of the Christmas card, with these different props and stuff in it. And as typical, hey, I'm a great fan, blah, 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 blah. And then you end it, oh, by the way, if you happen to have anything from the movie you'd be interested in selling, I'd love to talk to you. Well, he responds back going, oh, that's cool. Where'd you get it? And, I told him, oh, from this prop house. And then he's like, oh, sorry, but I don't have anything to sell. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
3 hours later, I start getting emails from him with pictures.
Wow.
And they're all from the Great Buck Howard.
He started rethinking it? Thought maybe I do have some
it turned
things.
out he was looking to raise funds for a project.
Okay.
So basically, clapperboard from the movie, his director's chair back, the original concept art for the posters, and on, scripts, the script supervisors, all this stuff. And I bought it all from him.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there and that re-energized my interest in the movie again.
Yeah.
So I started, the typical Googling and searching and, you may have heard of Profiles in History. They were a high-end auction house out here in California,
right.
that actually merged with Heritage Auctions now.
Okay.
But back then, I didn't realize it, but they had an eBay arm for lower-end stuff. And I timed it almost perfect because they're selling Great Puck Howard stuff.
Oh.
So I only missed a couple items and I got everything else they had. Costume, I've got like 90% of the costumes from it.
Okay.
All the props. That's why I'm very confident in saying, I've got it all. Cause like in the movie, Buck had these little cassette tapes that were his introductions that had to be played and everything.
Sure.
I can say I have the screen used one because I have all of them. So one of the 8 that I've got
used.
has to be the screen used one.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's one of my more significant
movie collectibles.
Right.
So what other type of movies? They're all magic related movies. I guess like Houdini, obviously, with Tony Curtis and all that.
Yeah, I definitely have some, primarily posters and lobby cards and, promo pics and that from Houdini. But I also, I collect non-magic TV movie props too as well. So
okay.
I have a little, my budget isn't like I would like it to be, but I have some lower end Avenger movie stuff. I collect some sci-fi shows like Firefly.
Oh, I see you wearing a Firefly t-shirt.
So I
Nathan Fillion, what a great series.
But I have some stuff from that. I'm a big Warehouse 13, which was a sci-fi show.
I remember that, yeah.
Fan, I've got a really significant collection of that.
Their stuff. Well, they had a bunch of really cool things because, as I recall, for people who may not have watched the Warehouse 13, they were going out and finding these things that were haunted artifacts, essentially. And they were bringing them back and putting them into storage to make sure that nothing happened to anybody else with these things.
Right. So if you've watched it, just to give you a flavoring of what I've got, I have Claudius Tesla gun. I've got the main Tesla gun from the very beginning, that pilot episode thing that they showed. I've got the Gazooka thing from it. I've got the Tesla grenades. I've got like the artifacts of the Chinese orchid that caused the global pandemic. I was making the joke during the pandemic, man, I shouldn't have been playing with that. And it just goes on and on because it's one of my favorite shows. And where I got lucky on this is there was a auction house that had a contract with the network studios and all this that sold through eBay way back in the day. So once the show ended,
they made a deal with eBay.
They had like 5 huge with like 200-300 items per auction.
Was it 3 seasons or 2 seasons?
It was 5 seasons.
5 seasons, okay.
Oh, the last season was like a long half season.
That's kind of, but I remember it kind of petered out.
Right. But this, there's VIP auctions is what it was, but they sold through eBay. And I stumbled onto it on the second auction. And I was picking stuff up, to be honest, dirt cheap because only 10% of the fans knew about it because it hadn't been communicated anyway. But as time went on, it got on and then the prices went up, but I've purchased, through that type of auction. Then there was a Sci-Fi Channel auction a few years later that I got some stuff off of. There's some other private collectors that I know who, decided, hey, I either need money or like one, friend lady I know decided to move away from collecting the Warehouse 13 type stuff into the little pop figures.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, hey, if you're interested in anything. So like I picked up Joshua's trumpet. If you know the show, Joshua's trumpet, which was disintegrating people. I got that from her. Marilyn Monroe's, hairbrush that turned, Micah's hair blonde in that one episode.
I don't remember that.
I got a script from her, and the other thing that was kind of cool was my favorite episode has this artifact thing in it called the Jade Elephant. And it catches electricity and it shoots it out. And the episode starts with the main character wearing like this funky backpack thing. And then he would catch these caused by the artifacts, excess lightning floating around the warehouse into the elephant. And then he'd discharge it into the backpack to be stored. Well,
kind of like a Ghostbuster thing.
Right. Well, I owned the backpack, but I'd missed the elephant when it went on auction. And so I was all upset. And it took me like 3 years of searching because it was an off-the-shelf elephant. I mean, they'd done work to it and painted it and everything for the production because it was actually a matte black one. But I finally found it in like Czechoslovakia. It'd been manufactured, and somehow this was shot up in Canada. So somehow it ended up somewhere in Canada, and they bought it off the shelf for the show. But I bought like every one they had left. So I've got probably 30 of these things sitting there. But I went to Randy Rain.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, Randy, here's my backpack, because it had like whole, little studs coming out of it that the elephant would sit down in.
Yeah.
So Randy took pictures and painted the elephant to look pretty close to the one in the show. She drilled in and wired it so that when I put it down on the, backpack thing, it would light up and do everything it was supposed to. So that was pretty cool. But then this lady I know who was selling her stuff had the one from the auction, the actual one. So I ended up getting it from her. So
after doing all that.
Yeah. So I was able to get them put together and stuff. And then like the Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, yeah. I remember that series.
TV show. I've got a lot of stuff from it. And, so I definitely have non-magic stuff. I've got some Now You See Me stuff, from that movie and such, but,
But they're not necessarily, again, all related then to magic in particular, but they might be something that's more science fiction or horror or, macabre type of things then as well. And once you start getting hold of something like any other kind of collection, it's like, I've got something else to find. That's part of the appeal, I think, of a collector. Of if you have 3, you want 4, and if there are 6 out there, you're going to spend the rest of your time and money looking for those last 2.
And I love, I'm an old movie, TV show guy. I mean, if I'm kicking back, relaxing, I've got that on in the background.
Turner movie classics or the classic movies,
exactly.
Kind of a thing. Yeah. And so there are so many movies you can watch streaming now all the time. Certainly you can find just about anything. And do you go back? Are there certain movies that you like more than others? I mean, what's one of your favorite movies?
Actually, it's a Tony Curtis movie with Janet Leigh in it as well, called The Black Shield of Falworth, where he plays a knight in the King Arthurian time, who was basically, his father was declared a traitor by the bad guy. The bad guy got him declared a traitor, removed from the roles of knighthood and all this stuff. And then he basically sets the record straight, throughout it. But like that, I watch it every year, even though we had the major eclipse this year. Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court with Bing Crosby, that kind of thing. It's kind of the mood. Like, I've watched, I'll get in the mood and I'll watch Love Boat. I'll pull that on, or Fantasy Island.
Do you have a lot of DVDs or VHS or something that you actually go back and watch, or you just have a collection of those? I
either have them that I recorded off and have burned to, like a hard drive to watch, like, the Xena series. I've got that. Xena. And I'll get in that mood and I'll just throw it on and I'll watch it.
That's a good point. If somebody were to ask me about what my favorite movie is, it depends upon the conversation and upon the mood. And like what we're talking about right now, that reminds me that one of my favorite movies was Heavy Metal. You remember that? It was an animated rock musical, basically, with various artists that had painted that. Yeah. And anyhow, I mean, there are other things that obviously that I like.
Something that sometimes gets me to watching when I hadn't planned on it is that there was a show called The Dresden Files. And it's based on a series of books by Jim Butcher. In fact, it's like about 15-ish, 16 books right now in the series. And it's about a wizard in Chicago.
Really?
Okay. And, he fights supernatural. I mean, he fights werewolves and...
What network or what's that on? Just streaming or what?
It's on streaming right now.
Like Netflix or...
I believe so. I'll confirm for you and let you know.
Dresden Files.
Right.
I haven't watched that because when I think of Dresden in Germany, and maybe there's a spy something, but it's actually about a wizard. So does he do like magic kind of things? I mean, or sleight of hand? Or
it's magic.
So it's like Harry Potter magic.
Sorcerer wizard.
Okay, gotcha.
But what's interesting, his father was a magician. His name is Harry Blackstone Copperfield Dresden.
Okay. Yeah, throw them all in there.
But, and his father was a magician who just, was barely making it. Yeah. But, that's how he made his living. And then it turns out that, I don't want to give it away for anyone who wants to go into it too much, but this is all comes out in the like very first book that his evil uncle killed his father so he could get Harry, the kid, because he had great potential and he wanted to basically at a young age train him into being on the dark side.
I see. Yeah.
Type thing.
Darth Vader kind of a guy.
The reason I brought it up is, it's one of my favorite book series. So, I'm rereading it now. I've got the book in my hotel room on the one I'm currently reading, but there was a 1-season, television series made of it. And just a few months ago and when I say years of searching, it's not like every day, like, Arthur Moses is out there every day
Arthur.
looking.
Arthur is every day.
But, it'd be the type thing that, I'll get in the mood, early on, I looked all the time. Couldn't find any props from that show. And then, I'll be cruising looking for something to watch. I'm like, oh, Dresden Files is streaming. And I think it's Netflix, but it might be Amazon Prime. And I'll start watching it, and that gets me going, oh, looking. And I actually found some props. From the Dresden Files. And I was just like, whoa. And,
now, when you're looking for things, by the way, are you finding most of those still through eBay or just Google search? My point is, or are they through auctions? Again, like Potter & Potter has auctions and things like that. But a lot of times auctions or what is that called? Sotheby's or something. There are other kinds of auction houses. You got to pay more for 20% buyer fee, et cetera, but eBay, you don't.
Yeah. Don't get me started on buyer's premiums.
Okay.
Well, because growing up country, we went to auctions all the time.
Oh, I remember, of course. I know.
And there was no such thing as a buyer's premium. All the auction houses, this is back in the 70s and stuff.
Yeah,
but they made their money off the seller.
That's right.
And whatever auction house deserves to be burned to the ground that came up with buyer's premiums. That's all I'll say on that. But yeah, early on, eBay was fantastic for finding stuff. For the stuff I look for now, I still look. But like the Houdini movie we mentioned, I think I mentioned that, I gave myself a present of a rare Houdini movie, the 53 movie poster, only 2 that I know of that exist. And I've got one of them last Thanksgiving. But, I saw one after I got mine, I saw one show up suddenly on eBay, and it wasn't in half as good a condition as mine, but it's the only 2 I've ever seen of that. When I talked to Shep Hyken, he hadn't seen it or anything. But yeah, some stuff I still find on eBay, but depends what it is. Because like on the Houdini movie stuff now, used to be you could go out there and find press photos and everything left and right.
Yeah, I remember.
Now you can find them left and right, but they're all modern reprints. And it's like, I don't know about you, but if I'm going to be doing that, I want the original. I don't want some reprint of something.
I think that's what NFTs are all about. NFTs are supposed to be an original. I mean, sure, you can make a copy of that JPEG or whatever, but an NFT is original. That's the only one of that kind. Whenever that you start to collect, I want to kind of get to a point where a lot of people now are saying, how do I get into collecting? Particularly might be a young person, might be an older person, or somebody who is thinking, I want to find a nice hobby where I'm getting retired, and I can't afford a lot necessarily, because if you're a kid and you're thinking, I mean, I used to collect business cards, so kind of how I got started, because they're free, and now nobody has business cards. I mean, it's changed a lot, so I'm glad I've got what I do. And I remember Aldi only had thousands of cards. Anyhow, getting off topic, what are your thoughts? What would you say? How would somebody get involved?
Okay. If I was, and since we're a magic podcast, if I was going to get involved today collecting magic, one, as you're well aware, especially if you follow the Potter auctions at all, surprisingly, prices on a lot of the stuff is going through the roof. I mean, it's jumping out of a young person, especially, budget range and everything else. So to me, it would be one, collect what you're passionate about. Now, I will be honest, there's been times I've collected things for the wow factors of people, friends like you and stuff coming over going, oh man, I know Chip and Scott are going to look at that and go, what the, how did you, and I'll be honest, because to me, that's a little bit of pleasure when, like back before the pandemic, when I had lots of people coming over to the house and whatnot, and I'd give the tour, the most common phrase, I'd be about halfway through, and I heard every single time was, my wife would never let me do this.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then they'd be like, can you clone your wife? Type thing. But, when I started, I didn't have a ton of money to go into it. I was into books. Mm-hmm. So I started going, hey, I'm a huge Juan Tamariz fan.
Yeah.
And so, hey, I picked up a few Juan Tamariz books. And then I'd go to magic lectures and conventions, and I'd become friends with people. And it would even be something like Rafael Benatar.
Yeah.
He did the English translations on Juan's books. And I'm like, hey, I'd like to get more Juan books, because I know there's a lot that he'd put out that
haven't been translated, right?
And so he said, hey, he provided me contact info for magic shops in Spain that carried Juan's books. And I contacted him, and I ordered and had them shipped back. And because of the relationship I built with him, like when he did the mnemonic translation in Spain, it was a 2-volume set. Mm-hmm. Over here, it's a one volume book,
right?
But I purchased from him at what I consider, $200.
Okay.
The Spanish version set that Juan personally gave to him, that he used for the translation, that has all his markups and notations in it. To me, that was a very fair price. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you hey, it may take, if you're just young, getting started, you're working a, McDonald's job or something. Mm-hmm. Hey, maybe that's 6 months of your saving up.
Yeah.
But it's a cool thing that.
So it should be something, number one, that interests you and that you want to collect. And as I was saying, it shouldn't be something that you should buy with the intent, hey, this is going to go up in value, because if it doesn't, you don't want to be disappointed. You want something that will give you joy and pleasure. So that's number one. What else what would be a second thing you'd say?
Well, this is from experience. Try to spend within your budget. And by that, I mean, there have been a couple times that I've sat there going, because I've worked contract jobs, mm-hmm. and they're one of those things, as things start going south, contractors are the first to go.
Yeah.
And there's been times I've sat there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I basically, as long as I'm employed, I'm fine, but I need to make sure I'm employed another 6 months to recoup what I just spent.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, all that reserve that I had to pay rent and stuff for those months is sitting in that magic item. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I've done that a few times. I don't recommend it unless you got a really stable job. And then don't be afraid to bargain. That's
a good third one. Yeah. I was thinking about don't pay for something more than you can afford. It's kind of like good advice about going to Vegas. Don't gamble more than you can afford to lose,
right.
Basically. So take a certain amount, and when it's gone, it's gone. And if you win, then fine, whatever, you have fun. But that third one is good too.
And then, it's one of those things that even in today's day and age, if you're truly serious about collecting, all right, mm-hmm. and it's not hey, I want that Sherwood set of cups.
Yeah.
And you can't afford them. Hey, could you give me or sell me for half the price you paid for it? But let me tell you, collectors are, a lot of collectors are generous.
They are.
They've got duplicates and things that, hey, if they know you're passionate about Channing Pollock, I mean, perfect example. I was on to what's Josh Jay's convention that he
the Magi Fest.
All right. I've only been to one. Juan Tamariz was there.
Yep.
But going out, I stopped over and spent 3 days at Ken Klosterman's. Mm-hmm. Just looking at all his stuff and everything. And one day we're coming back from dinner in the evening and talking, and we got to talking about Channing Pollock.
Yeah.
Now, I was in the Navy, and I collect Navy-related memorabilia of magicians who are in the Navy.
Okay.
So I have Channing Pollock's naval discharge papers. Mm-hmm. I have picture of his ship that he was on, and I have his company picture and everything. And we were talking about that. And, and I told him, hey, I met Channing a few times, da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
We get back to his house, and, he had people he employed to work and help him. And we get in there, and he goes, "Hey, can you go get the Channing box?"
Mm-hmm.
And he pulls it up, brings it up, opens it up, and he goes, "Go ahead and pick a pair." And there's different cufflinks of Channing Pollocks in there.
Wow.
And he just gave them to me.
Yeah.
And so, realize that people will help you out.
I remember that was one of Ken's things. He collected the cufflinks of a lot of magicians.
And he'd ask for them.
Yeah.
He'd write them and everything. Yeah. "Hey, I collect this. Would you mind sending?"
That's a good thing. That's a good suggestion as far as asking people for things. I mean, what are they going to say but no? It's like asking out the prom queen. What's she going to say but no?
And I will admit, and maybe I shouldn't, but I will admit, I didn't intend this, but it came kind of devious. I have the world's most eclectic magic collectible in my house. Now, this looks better as a visual, but let me describe it to you.
Okay.
So 2001, I am sitting at TAOM Sunday night with Roger Klaus in the bar having a beer. Mm-hmm. And we're talking and stuff, and we got about college, and I told him how I had a mannequin when I was in college that I put in the back of my pickup truck on the weekends, dressed up, and drive around campus.
Okay.
And he, hey.
Why? Okay, but whatever.
Hey, it was college.
Yeah.
But he goes, "Do you still have it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's up in the attic." And Roger goes, "Hey, if you ever get it down," and he takes his performer's badge off, hands it to me and says, "Put this on it and call it Roger."
Okay.
So a few years later, John and Tammy Calford are staying at the house.
Yeah.
And, after they left, I do, how you do to walk around, make sure nothing was forgotten.
Yeah.
I find John's pajama top hanging in the guest bathroom.
Okay.
I call him up. "Hey, John, you left your pajama top here. You want me to mail it to you?" Because he was on his way to New York. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Nah, do whatever you want." Roger came down.
Yeah.
I put his pajama top on it. Okay. So then Fielding West comes by the house, and, he didn't intend this, but he had a big straw hat that he'd bought.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to take it on the plane. So he just sticks it on top of Roger's head.
Okay.
Now, Roger has a pair of orange glasses on it. The only thing on Roger of everything I'm going to describe that I paid for, I bought the Tom Mullica nicotine nincompoop glasses off the Potter auction that were for the Crazy Horse Saloon.
Okay.
So they're there. Well, there's also the bow tie and the pocket handkerchief that when Tom moved from Branson to Las Vegas, he found. And when he was at TAOM in 2013, knowing I had the glasses, he gave them to me.
Okay.
So they're there. Harry Anderson, when I had him in, gave me a night court tie and put on him. I have a Matt King stage worn at Harrah's Cloak of Invisibility on there. I have over his shoulder George Sands used rope given to me by Alan Sands, who I became good friends with. But the point is, I have the shoes are Rudy Kobe's stage worn shoes.
The Vans. Yeah.
Yeah. Gazzo, when he was there, and now the reason a lot of these people were there is, as you know, I hosted lectures from 2005 till the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And the majority of them would stay at the house, lectures Sunday afternoon, but they'd stay Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and leave Monday. Mm-hmm. And, you might go, "Well, how'd you get them all to stay?" Well, I had Jeff Hobson and others stay. And if you were coming into lecture, Scott, what I'd do is I'd offer to let you stay at the house. And then if we didn't really know each other, I'd go, "Oh, by the way, Jeff Hobson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, have stayed at the house," knowing that you were friends with them, and you could reach out and say, "Hey, what was it like staying at Mark's?" Because as you know from the lecture stuff, some of them hate getting thrown on a couch in a corner.
They love staying at your place. I've heard that a lot. Yeah, and I like visiting with Chip as well. There are a few places.
But the whole point of this thing is, Jeff Hobson put one of his stage-worn rings on, Roger's fingers. Alan knew when he was there, spent a spoon into a bracelet and put it on. So I've got this really eclectic thing sitting there. And the thing is, all except for the glasses were given to me. Mm-hmm. And it's because people want to, I think they wanted to be part of the story.
Yeah.
Like Gazzo, when he was there, it was funny because he'd go into the guest bedroom and then he'd come out and he'd stare at Roger.
Okay.
Trying to figure out what he wanted to put on it. And then he'd go back in there. Then he'd come out and stare again. And he ended up, evidently, he had two boutonnieres he wore during his career, a white one and a black one. And Roger has the white one.
Okay. Wow.
On him and stuff. So, and then Lupe, she gave me one of Norm Nielsen's custom-made suit jackets for it, one of his favorite ties that he wore, and then in the pocket is one of the 12 gold-plated palming coins Norm had done up that's in there.
Yeah.
And all this is friends, new friends, old friends who have been generous and I think want to be part of Roger.
That's pretty cool. That's different. I've got just a book of everybody who stayed with me that's signed their name, saying, hey, thanks for this. But that's a very unique and eclectic thing.
The only thing I regret on that I didn't even think of is when Garrett Thomas was there.
Yeah.
He put one of his magic trick banded ring things on Roger's finger, but then he lifted up the pajama top, of which when John and Tammy came to stay again later, when John saw it, he started laughing and insisted on signing it on the pocket because that's how Houdini signed his pajama top on the pocket. Right. So it's signed by John. But Garrett lifted it up. And what are those signatures called that are the same if you flip it over?
I know what you're talking about, like Dan Garrett and some of those guys.
Right.
He can sign the name, but it's the same upside down as it is right side up. Yeah.
But Garrett wrote his name on the belly in Sharpie on that. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there going, dang, why didn't I think of that? Of all these people who came through.
Sign Roger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wish I'd thought of that.
Well, hindsight. Well, to wrap up, the name of my podcast is called The Magic Word Podcast. So what is it that of all the things that we've discussed over here that's important to you that sometimes it changes from day to day, but whatever would be a phrase or something that's your motto?
I would say caretaker.
Be a caretaker.
Because, hey, I was talking to Lance Burton earlier today about some of his experiences with Marshall Brodien, because these, for me, I feel like I'm a custodian of Marshall's legacy right now.
You are.
And
the stories are important to go with the legacy.
Exactly.
Yes.
And they help fill in gaps and give you a better picture of the individual and everything.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good idea. I like that. People should be a caretaker, and that if you're going to be a collector, that's exactly what we are, and to take good care of that and to collect stories. That'd be the cheapest thing that you can collect as well as kind of getting started. Mark, thanks very much. I appreciate your friendship. I've enjoyed you over the years, and it's always good hanging out with you. And also, I've always wanted to sit down and have this conversation. I'm glad we had a chance then to kind of break away for a little bit of time to do that.
All right. And let me just, besides thanking you, just say, hey, when next time you're up in Dallas, I've added a ton of stuff to my museum. Give me a call. Come on out. I'd love to have you.
Do you have an email where people can contact you, or a website or anything?
I have a website. It is...
You don't remember offhand? You got it somewhere in there.
Yeah, it is Jensen Collector, JENSEN collector.com. On there, there's my contact info, so you can reach out to me. You'll see I have a hard time keeping it updated, but a lot of my collection, you'll see the only David Copperfield magic set in existence.
Mm-hmm. It was a Brodien thing also.
Yes,
I remember seeing that.
That was a Marshall thing. And, there's a lot of information stuff and that. And,
cool.
You can find stuff. But, if you're in the Dallas area, hey, reach out. If I'm home, I'd love to have you come by and share my stuff.
Well, thank you, Mark, for that offer that you're making everybody. And don't be surprised if people come knocking on your door sometime soon.
But, if you're famous and you want to be part of Roger, think ahead.
What do you have to add aside from your signature on the belly? So with the Magic Word Podcast, that was Mark Jensen from Dallas. This is Scotty out. Thank you very much, Mark, for being my guest this week on the Magic Word Podcast. I've enjoyed our friendship throughout the years, and also a chance we finally had to sit down and talk and to share your passion with the rest of the world. And thank you, listeners, for, again, tuning in, and I hope that you got something out of this. If you're thinking about collecting, he's got a few good ideas in there about how that you can kind of get started and everything then, too, or perhaps how that you can marshal your collection together into one place. You might have noticed that I misspelled the word marshaling. A collection correction when I entitled this particular episode, and I did do it intentionally because marshalling should have just one L, but Marshall Brodien has two L's. So there you go. That's the reason I did that. Anyhow, thank you again, Mark, and thank you again, everyone, for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to go to themagicwordpodcast.com where you can actually subscribe to a pod letter, which comes out each week. And if you are not already one of those subscribers to the pod letter, please do that so this way that you can keep up to date on who's going to be there each week and who's going to be also some suggestions from the archives. So until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember to be a caretaker for the next generation of collectors. This is Scotty out.